just babbling away, which
Sure.
there we
So
go.
there's a thing now that says this meeting's being recorded. So
Yeah, I just started. Exactly. Perfect. So anyway. But I think it's interesting what you said about the music and also, like I said, yeah, the loudness of trying to create anxiety, right? Because there's because the fact is we are quite predictable as humans if we are neurotypicals of how we respond. And that's also what partly makes us receptible to manipulation, right? And why they know that by giving loud music, we feel anxious and then we want to buy more alcohol, etc.
Yeah, well, my narcissist, what she did was she used to sit up with me talking quite late about politics and art and, you know, stimulating things, exciting things. She didn't want to just sit there and watch TV and just vegetate like some people do of an evening. So she was very good at stimulating me and making me think and making me, you know, think that I'd found an incredible connection.
Yeah.
Because what she was doing was she was, and I'm not saying any of this was calculated. It's just the habit that they have, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of being interesting people, stimulating people.
Yeah.
You know, and that is very attractive, isn't it?
It really is. You know, I think the danger as empathetic human beings is that we have the tendency to project our perception of the world onto others, right? Meaning, this is why we struggle to understand how can they do this, right? And we won't let go because we keep saying, surely they can change. I hear this all the time, even on your forum. People keep asking, oh, do they change? Because we project our perception of how we are, and we know that we can change. So therefore we presume surely everybody else can do the same, right? We presume that nobody would purposefully hurt somebody else because we wouldn't do that. Yeah. And these presumptions, I think, actually puts us in a bit of a danger because it means that we refuse to see what's actually happening, right? And we refuse to acknowledge that the narcissist's perception of the world is fundamentally different than ours. And actually, they do not mind hurting you. And actually, they have no intention of ever changing. But we refuse to believe that because we want to interpret the world from our own frame of reference, right? Which is that we can change. And you know, surely nobody would actually hurt somebody else on purpose.
Absolutely. Well, when we're born, we come into the world with one mind and one set of eyes and one set of ears, don't we? And we automatically assume that everybody else thinks in the same way that we do. Yeah. And as we get older, we learn that this is just not the case.
Yeah. And
you know, some people are into kayaking. Some people are musicians, you know, that's how it works. Yeah. So I saw a question on the forum recently and it said, what are the different types of narcissists? And first of all, I think that's a bit of a misdirection because we don't really need to be thinking about the different types of narcissists and what they are all about and what they do. Really, what we need to be doing is looking inside ourselves. Why did I trust this person so much without them having to prove that they deserved my trust? You know, what we need to do is really look at ourselves. But the different types of narcissists, I would say there's two different types. There is the cerebral narcissist and a somatic narcissist. And they really are two different flavors of the same person because all those terms really describe is what they use to attract attention. Because the narcissist really is a person who wants to attract attention. So the somatic narcissist uses sexual attraction, physical attraction. They're the best looking person in the room. They're sometimes the funniest. And the cerebral narcissist is quite similar because they're the person who is the cleverest person in the room. And that's also very attractive, isn't it? But what you should really be asking is, why am I attracted to people that I perceive to be clever? Is it because I don't feel clever? Maybe that's something I should work on. Why am I attracted to pretty people apart from the obvious? You know, is it because I want people to look at me? Is it because I want people to be attracted to me? Why do I not feel perhaps as attractive as I could be? And that's the real secret there. Like
Yeah.
I say, I think people go out there and they say, well, you know, I want to learn everything there is to learn about my ex. And the truth is, you don't really need to learn everything about your ex. You just need to learn about you.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, because I think the core and where this can actually become a healthy experience to some degree. I know that sounds absurd, but long term, people will see why this makes sense. Is, as you said, to start reflecting on what needs was it that I had that the narcissist fulfilled. Because I always say your needs are actually legitimate, but there can be ways that are very toxic of trying to fulfill those needs, which obviously is, for example, dating a narcissist who obviously
Yeah.
come with a lot of side effects, right?
Yeah.
It's like taking a medicine that might solve one problem, but it creates a lot of other problems, right?
Cool.
And I think, you know, when I started looking at this after I had the experience, I started looking at what were these fundamental needs, like you said, both were out of wounds, but also what were the needs of never having felt fully accepted, you know, being bullied as a child. And suddenly when somebody idolized me in that way, it made me feel accepted in a way I always
Mm.
craved. And feeling accepted is a legitimate need. But of course, it can also make us very exposed to toxic people in this way, unless I found another way to gain that acceptance. And what I then went out and did, acknowledging that need as being valid and not trying to say, oh, I shouldn't feel that way, because it's a human need that we need to feel accepted, right? And having not had that in my childhood, it felt so intoxicating to get it right from a
Yeah.
narcissist who gave it in this, of course, not a real way, but it felt real at the time. Um, and then I sat down and said, okay, what are other ways that I can fulfill this need, but in ways that don't come with horrible side effects, right? How can I get this without taking a really bad medicine? And what I then did is I went out and I started building communities with my friends where I cultivated this, and I would even be open with them and say, sometimes a friend we would have banter and tease each other, and I would tell them, actually, this doesn't feel good to me, but because I was bullied as a kid, and it kind of makes me feel that rejection when, even if you do it for fun, and they would respect that because they were my friends, and the ones that didn't, they fell away, but most of them did. So they stopped making fun, and I told them, actually, what I need is for you to support me, and sometimes also acknowledge me. And then I started getting that from lots of different people, and suddenly it wasn't dependent on one person, which again makes us very exposed, right? If we're dependent on one person giving us this, then we're very exposed to that toxic. But I started getting it from lots of people, and that meant, again, I became less dependent on a partner coming and showering, and suddenly the love bombing weren't that compelling anymore when I experienced it in another person, because that need I had acknowledged and got from other people. So I think it's important to look at those underlying needs and say that actually because often we don't like being vulnerable, especially as men, right? We are told, oh, that's weak, we shouldn't do that. But to
Mhm.
heal, we have to be vulnerable, and we have to look at what are these underlying needs that I have that made me seek out and actually accept that they're okay to have those needs.
Yeah.
And maybe there's just a better way we can get them
Yeah.
fulfilled.
We're not raised to talk about our feelings, are we?
No.
Incidentally, here's a strange thing. I had a dream the other night when I was asleep, obviously. I had a dream, and in this dream, I bumped into an old friend. And I bumped into an old friend while I was painting my narcissist's house, which obviously I haven't lived in for over 20 years.
Mhm.
So I'm painting the house, and the old friend comes along and he says, hey, what are you doing? And I'm saying, well, I'm painting this house, and it's really strange that I've got all these memories, and my narcissist is long gone and I'm still here. And my friend said, well, how would you describe that feeling? And I woke up the next morning and I thought, how would you describe that feeling? What a genius thing to say,
Mhm.
isn't it? Not that I want to call myself a genius, but what a revealing thing to ask yourself. How would you describe your feelings about a situation? Us men, we're not really raised to do that, are we? We don't go to school and the teacher says, right, I want you to write an essay about your feelings.
Yeah.
That's something we definitely need to learn.
Yeah. It
And
really is.
it's very very good, I think, to sit down and just say to yourself, how do I feel about stuff?
Yeah.
How this person treats me, how do I really feel about it?
Yeah. I think
You know?
that's so important. Thank you for bringing that up, because I also think there's this whole, and I see it a lot on the forum, where people want kind of the validation that, my ex was a narcissist. So they will keep, how do I know if it's a narcissist, right?
Mm.
That's a
Yeah,
common
you see
question.
that a lot.
And I think, like you said before, when we get to a certain point, we realize that's not important. And the reason that we think that's so important as a beginning is because we lost trust in our own emotions and sensations, right? And therefore we need this validation that the other person was toxic, because once we trust and listen to our own emotions, we already know who is toxic for us and who is not. And it doesn't really matter what the label is. It doesn't matter if they're borderline, if they're narcissists, if they're histrionic, or if they have none of these personality disorders. It's actually completely irrelevant. What we can, when we can listen to ourselves, we can just feel, wow, being around this person feel really stressful, and I feel I have to hide myself, right? And if you feel that, then this is not good for you. And it actually doesn't matter whether your ex had the label of a narcissist or not. What matters is they were not good for you, because people that are good for you get the best out in you. They make you feel more free. They make you feel more seen, more accepted, less anxious, right? So,
Absolutely.
but I think you're right, because we don't have that trust in our own sensations and feelings, because we're not used to tuning in and listen to it. Then we need to other people to tell us that this was a narcissist, because then we can kind of accept, okay, this person wasn't good. But if we listen to ourselves, we already know whether this person was good for us or not.
Yeah. Actions reveal priorities. That's something that I read the other day that I found to be very inspiring. Actions reveal priorities. So don't look at what the narcissist is doing. Yeah, look at how you feel. How do you feel in this relationship? Do you feel anxious all the time? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel not listened to? That's what you need to look at. Don't look at them, look at you.
Yeah. And I think that's coming back to trusting, because also, you know, I work with people who even a long time after said, I still don't feel safe dating again. I don't feel safe, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I get that, because I think the sense of safety, while of course it's good to be around people that are safe, that respect us, that care about us, and we should, but also the sense of safety really comes back in trusting ourselves and trusting our own emotions, because part of what the narcissist does is they make us doubt ourselves. That's what the whole gaslighting is about. And when we doubt ourselves, if we can't trust our own perception anymore, then the whole world feels unsafe, right? Because everything is unsafe if we can't trust what we're experiencing, whether it's real or not. But when we come back and really trust, and when we know that we feel anxious, we know, okay, that means this is not right. And I don't need to know why this person does it, or whether they're going to stop, or I just know this is not right. So I'm going to say stop. And when we trust in our own sensations, feelings, and boundaries, then we feel safe again, because we also know that when we meet people that are toxic, we will automatically filter them out, because we trust. So we don't listen to what the nonsense they keep telling us. We just listen, and we feel, oh, this doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel good. I feel anxious around this person. And that's enough for us to say stop.
You won't feel safe because this person has undermined your reality. They've pulled the rug out from underneath you, because you expect to go into a relationship thinking, right, I'm going to give this person my affection and companionship, and you expect to get that in return. And that's not what this person wanted you for at all. This person wanted you as an object to reflect back their own existence. And that's why they threw all of this stuff at you, to get you to emotionally respond in a way so that they could stand there and look at you and say, well, this is the effect that I have on the world.
That's beautiful.
That's what they've done, and that's not what you expected.
That's right.
But those people do exist. And do we talk about that often enough? Maybe we don't. But again, don't look at them. Look at you. If you feel unstable and not ready to date, and that you don't trust people, then that's okay. Just go along with that. You don't have to date people if you don't want to date people. You don't have to trust people if you don't trust people. You know, find a hobby to do on your own. Take up painting or something. You know, there's lots of ways you can express your emotions and get those feelings out and cleanse yourself and get ready to face the world again. You know, you don't need to let this ruin your life. And as you said, in a way, it can actually improve your life, because I certainly did a lot of reflection after my experience. And I realized that paradoxically, what I'd done is that I'd chosen my narcissist as a way to express my own narcissism, because I wanted to be with the prettiest, cleverest person in the room.
Of course.
The one that everybody was looking at.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the guy that was, hey, look at him. He's how did he do that? That's the guy that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And again, as you said, you've got to examine perhaps your childhood wounds. Why do you want to be this guy that everybody looks at? Why can't you just be content being you?
Yeah. And I also think it's so important that we acknowledge that it's okay to need acceptance, because that's often what, like I said, makes us so vulnerable to this love bombing, right? It's okay. It's just, you need to figure out where's it safe to get this acceptance from. And somebody who showers you like this while hardly knowing you, that's normally a person who's not safe. But going to your friends for 10 years and say, you know what, I feel a bit wobbly. But again, it's so hard when we're not used to feeling that it's okay. And we grow up in this culture who said, oh, you have to be independent and not need anyone. We get shamed. You know, I just spoke to a wonderful friend of mine, and she said, oh, I feel so needy, asking you for support. And I thought, what a dysfunctional culture we live in that makes it wrong to ask for a friend for a bit of emotional support. You know, that we think we have to, because you know what, we are social animals. Our brain is a social organ. We are meant to live in community. This individualism and separateness is not doing us any good, which is why we have more mental health issues than ever before. Narcissism is on the rise more than ever before, right? So the fact is, I think we need to come back and actually push back against this culture and say, you know what, it's okay to need each other, and it's okay to reach out. It doesn't make you needy that you ask, because there's a lot of judgment around the word needy, right? There's nothing bad about reaching out to your friend and say, you know what, actually I need a bit of encouragement instead of you making fun of me. That doesn't make you needy. It just makes you human, you know? And I think when we can acknowledge that, then we can actually start getting these needs met from a healthy place that build a safe attachment. And over time, by getting that, we won't be compelled anymore to these toxic people, because we built that safe foundation. But we can't start doing that unless we acknowledge that it's actually okay to need that social support, right? And to reach out for that from safe. And some of your friends might not be safe, and then they will have to fall away too. And I think that's a transition period as we get out of this and start realizing, like you said, listening to ourselves, right? And have our own boundaries, that some people will fall away, but it will make space for new people. And this is the only way to slowly build a safe, secure attachment, is surround ourselves with safe, secure people that don't judge us and that can actually hear and respond when we express what we need, right? So we can get that in a safe way, and that will eventually make us safe, so we don't even gravitate towards these people anymore.
No. And I definitely lost friends after my experience, because you start to see things in people that you don't appreciate. Why is this guy making fun out of me all the time? And if you talk to him about it, say, like you said, hey, you know, I don't really appreciate you making fun out of me. Can you just not do that? Some people will turn around and say, hey, what's wrong with you? Other people will say, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I'll listen to you. And those people are the people that you will want to keep around. But you will, once you come out of this experience, you will lose people, but they will be the people that you need to lose.
Yeah, that's such an important point, because somebody asked me, how do I know who's toxic? And I think we already touched upon this, because we talked about learn to listen to how you feel, how you sense, because that will tell you the truth once you trust yourself again. But I think the second part is, which is a simple test that we can always do when we meet people in the beginning, is to set a simple boundary. And as you said here, the fact is that people who generally are toxic for us, they won't respect our boundaries. They will not respond. They will make us feel bad about our boundaries, so they will simply steam over them. And that's a big, big warning sign. And that doesn't matter whether they have a personality disorder or not. Even for people without, it's a warning sign. If somebody doesn't respect, like you said, a kind request to say, you know what, it doesn't feel good when you do this. While a nurturing person for you, what they will do when you set a boundary, we all make mistakes, you know, even healthy, but what they do is they will respond by apologizing, acknowledging, and changing their behavior. So I feel setting a boundary early on when we meet people is such a good way to see how they respond and see, is this actually a nurturing person?
But again, that's something that you've had to learn. That's not something that you start off with in the world.
That's right.
This is something that you learn and you earn.
That's right.
As you go along, isn't it?
Exactly. And I guess some people who were violated by their parents as children, they find it really difficult to set these boundaries, which is why, again, when I say to people, you know, it's so important to start this practice, but start with somebody who's safe. So maybe pick somebody who has actually shown you a lot of respect, acceptance, and tell them, you know what, I struggle with boundaries. I did this for a friend of mine. She's such a lovely, wonderful human being, so empathetic, but also a proper caretaker. And she has been taken advantage of many times because she lacked boundaries. And I said to her, listen, first of all, you're a woman, and I want to just establish we're never going to be sexual because that create a safety frame, right?
Yeah.
But I said, if you want to, we can play with boundaries. And then we started playing with it. And I literally just had met her at a festival. And I asked her, I said, can I touch you? And she said, no. And I gave her a high five. And that instant validation she got from setting a boundary, she said, was so reinforcing and so powerful because she never had that before, right? She normally had the opposite. People made her feel guilty, bad about having, and I played with this with her for now 2 years. And she said, oh my God, it's been such a wonderful healing experience. And now I can do it with also toxic people in my life, she said, and they slowly falling away. So, you know, if you never had it, it's difficult. So pick one safe person, find one, and maybe you don't even have that, but then find a therapist or a coach, whatever. Find one safe person where you can start practicing. And over time, as you get validation for your boundaries, it becomes easier and easier to do with more difficult people too, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have a safe person to practice these things with, just do it with yourself. Just say, you know, how do I feel about stuff? How do I feel about it when this person talks to me like that? And how do I feel about it when, you know, this person does this thing that I've told them that I don't want them to do?
Yeah.
You know, just practice that with yourself.
Yeah, nice. I like that. And even something, I know this sounds really strange, but it can be really powerful. It's just to put your hand out like this and say stop, because your body gets to feel, how does it actually feel to physically say, no, this is my boundary. And actually it feels quite powerful to practice that, you know, and feel, how does it feel in your body when you put out a hand, and just because it's a physical way of saying stop, right? Stop. And doing that repeatedly can also teach your body, how does it actually feel when you say, no, this is enough. And again, that's something you can do yourself too, if you don't have somebody to practice with.
And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when people say swear words, it does something to your entire body. You go, and you know, maybe you just need to sit down and just do that for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you can find a space to do that, and nobody can hear you, because they might be a little bit freaked out by that, perhaps. But if you can find 5 minutes somewhere to do that, that's not bad. That what you're doing is you're grabbing hold of something and throwing it out of your body. You know, and sometimes we just need to do that. To cope with our feelings if we're not comfortable with describing them, or we don't have somebody to describe them to.
And
I mean, personally, what I used to do to get my frustrations out is I used to fight a pillow, you know. And like I say, as long as nobody hears you, then that's okay.
And you know what, I think the part is also that it's actually really hard to set boundaries if we don't even know what they are, because it's easy for me to talk about because I've done this work for 10 years. But the truth is, some people have been so violated that they have grown up not even knowing that they have a right to something like boundaries. So you say boundary and they'll be like, well, I don't know what my boundaries is, right? So I don't actually know. And I think it's a good exercise to start maybe even writing down, you know, when you feel something doesn't feel good in your body, right? Or you start feeling anxious, etc. Write down, what was it? And then you start mapping out, what is it? And then I do the system where I say, you know, there's a yellow card and a red card. And you basically start figuring out what are deal breakers, which I call is a red card, a sending off, right? Where you literally get rid of people and say, this I won't tolerate. I don't know what that is for you. It could be cheating. It could be somebody hitting you, whatever it is. It's up to you to figure this out, right? Because it's different. And what is a yellow card? Where you will give somebody a warning and give them a chance to see, okay, are they going to apologize, take responsibility, and change behavior? And once we kind of learn what that is, then it becomes much easier, because we already know. And it's kind of like showing up ready for the world rather than showing up having no idea, right? It's hard to navigate if you have no map and no sense of direction. And this way I kind of know if somebody is late, okay, that's not a red card for me, but it's a yellow card, right? If they don't have any explanation or just don't turn up, I'll say, listen, it's not okay. that you just stand me up because I value my time, and it shows a lack of respect. Next time I expect you to call me and tell me if you're not coming and let me know in advance. Right. And that's kind of like a yellow card. And of course, if they do it again and again, then it becomes a red card. But I think it's just easier. I don't know what your opinion is on this, but if we know ourselves more again, it's easier to show up and navigate the world, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's interesting what you said about the cards there, because what you're doing is you're not saying, hey, you didn't show up, so now I'm never going to talk to you again. What you've done is you've given them the framework of how you should be treated. And you say, if you do that again, we're going to have some problems, aren't we? So don't do that again.
Yeah.
So you've given them a way to get out of it.
Yeah.
You've given them your boundary.
Yeah.
So now they know what that boundary is. They can choose what to do with it.
Yeah, that's why I like the cards analogy, because it's like a football. I guess in America they call it a soccer coach, right? And by giving the yellow card, he said you can still play the game, but you need to know if you continue this behavior, you won't be able to play this game anymore.
Yeah. Or you can play the game somewhere else.
Yeah. Exactly. And one thing I wanted to actually talk to you about as well today is because I notice this again come up a lot when people are in this trauma bond, and they really struggle, I think, to make sense of how somebody could say all these nice things and then suddenly disappear. And I think, and it is hugely painful. It is a traumatizing experience. And I think it's so hard to understand because we try again to understand it for our own plane of reference, which is kind of how we started this call. We can't make sense of it because we would never do that. So we're like, oh, but how can you say you love me and then block me the next week? Because that will never make sense to us from our plane of reference, because we would never do that, right? We could never say, oh, I want to spend my life with you, and then next day block that person. So we keep getting this frustration trying to understand the narcissist behavior from our plane of reference. So I wanted to just talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so I've got a very simple way of explaining the trauma bond. If you imagine that you're on a bus and it's a public bus, you're sitting next to people that you don't know, you've never met them before, you just happen to be on the bus together. And suddenly that bus goes over a hole in the road and it dips like that. And you all think, oh, I don't know, maybe the bus is going to fall over or throw us out or something. In that split second, what you'll see is the way that people treat each other is different. Suddenly you're not strangers anymore. You're looking at each other like, oh, that was close. And you've suddenly become friends in a way, but it's not permanent, because as soon as the bus starts driving on an even road again, they'll go back to being strangers. But for that split second, you've bonded over the trauma. That's the trauma bond. And that with a narcissist, it works on two levels. First of all, you will meet the narcissist and they'll say, oh, I'm being treated badly by my ex. And you'll say, well, I'll protect you. And what you're doing is you're bonding with your narcissist over this external threat. Another way that this happens is you get into your relationship with your narcissist, and slowly, steadily, the relationship becomes a little bit rocky and you start having arguments that you don't really understand. And what you're doing is you're bonding with your narcissist over the trauma. So there's not an external threat anymore. It's a threat that's actually in between the two of you, but you're bonding with them over it, because that drama creates connections, doesn't it?
It really does.
I mean, you and I are speaking today because we've shared a trauma. So we have become bonded over that trauma in a way, haven't we?
We have. And I think this is actually a good point. I'm really happy you bring this up, because I think it distinguishes the difference between a toxic bond and a nurturing bond, because we are bonding over trauma. The interesting thing is the element that caused the trauma bond, which is why it's so painful and addictive, is the mixture between reward and anxiety, right? So I think in our dynamic, we don't have the element of anxiety because none of us are threatening each other with abandonment, so we just get the bonding element, which is the reward hormone, right? Which is why this is nurturing. But you're right, we're bonding over trauma. But the narcissist does, and toxic people, is they mix reward with anxiety, which is what caused this bond where we become actually addicted to them, right? Because it's like taking a drug. It's like, woohoo, I feel so great. That's a love bombing, right? Where you get showered,
and then they'll bring you back down.
And then they get anxiety, right? They retrieve, they block you, whatever and you start feeling really anxious. And this up and down is literally like the drug, right? You feel great, and then the next day you're like, oh, I feel so shit, and then you get another shot. So it literally built that in your brain.
This is exactly how fruit machines work. You know, fruit machines where you put them, pull the handle, because they will have a percentage of payout that they do, like they'll pay out 5% of all the money that you put in or something.
That's right.
And that's designed to keep you hooked because you get that little reward.
Yeah,
it's that little reward that keeps you going and pulling that handle and putting the money in.
Yes, that's right. But it's not consistent, and you don't know when the reward comes, right? No. With a narcissist, you don't know when punishment and reward comes. So it creates this hyper-vigilant, right, in your nervous system. And yeah, I think for people who, because I get this a lot, and I see it on your forum as well, this question of how could they do this, which is something people just can't grasp. And I think it's so important that people understand that these people are not like you, and you have to stop trying to understand their behavior from you plane of reference, because you will be forever frustrated and never make sense. You have to understand that neurologically they are simply wired differently, and when they met you, they bought into a fantasy, kind of like a snapshot that we call idolization, right?
Yep.
They basically created this image of you in your head. And as soon as you no longer fit that because you don't give them enough supply, you set a boundary, you cause some injury by criticizing them, whatever it might be that could happen. It could be anything. It could be you just don't have enough time for them and they want more of your attention, whatever. It's not your fault. But suddenly, boom, they devalue you. And this image in their brain switch to the complete opposite. And they actually feel that you deserve abuse because now you become this complete opposite image, right? And it's important to understand because our brain doesn't function that way. I know you, and I think you're an awesome guy. And maybe one day you're going to mess up, but that doesn't mean that suddenly I think you're not awesome. I just knew that you messed up because my brain can see the gray area of human existence, right? And a normal brain can, but their brain doesn't operate like that. And that's why they're able to think, oh, you're so amazing, I love you, all this idolization, and suddenly think you're a piece of shit and treat you like a piece of shit. And a normal human brain cannot do that. And therefore we struggle to understand that because our brain isn't normal.
This is absolutely right. Because what happens is they invent an idea of you and they invent this idea of you as a perfect person. And the moment that you do mess up, and we all mess up because we're all human, then they feel betrayed. You told me you was a perfect person. Now you're not. You've lied to me. Now I must punish you. And that's such a weird way for us to see the world. As people who've had this experience, it's a tough one to get your head around.
It is, because like I said, it doesn't make sense to our mind because we don't operate in these extremes, right? Like I said, we mainly operate in a gray area of human existence, which is we can be good people. And yes, we can't always be there for each other. You know, I know you and me can talk, we can support, but you can't be there all the time. Like for the narcissist, that's not acceptable. Either you're there for me all the time when I want you, or you're suddenly a demon in my mind, right? And then I think justified in treating you like shit. And
it's an on-off switch. You're one or the other. You're black or you're white. You're good or you're bad. There's no middle.
They cannot see the gray part where my brain would be, okay, Brian is an awesome, supportive person, but you know, he can't be there for me all the time when I need him to be, because that's just how human experience is. And I get that, right? So I don't start punishing you. But for the narcissist, that could not be acceptable because there is no gray area. You're either there all the time or you're a piece of shit. It's like,
and it's inevitable as well, because you're not going to be a perfect person because nobody is.
Yes, and you can't be there for their every need all the time. It's just not humanly possible.
So sooner or later you will do something wrong, even if that's not washing up their cup properly, you know, something as mundane and irrelevant as that. You know, you will do something wrong and they will start to build up grudges against you.
Yeah.
And when you talk to your narcissist, it will be, you didn't wash my cup up properly, you did this, you did that, and you did it. And normal people don't keep lists of stuff that people have done wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like you said about showing somebody the yellow card or the red card, you only do that once or twice. You don't keep a list and say, well, actually, you know, now that we brought this up, here is a list of all the things that you've done wrong.
Yeah.
We don't do that, do we?
Yeah.
That's not
And you know what? I also think a core of healthy relationship, friends or romantic, doesn't matter, is that we have a sense of mutuality, meaning that I know you have needs, you know I have, we both understand that we both are two human with needs, and sometimes they're going to contradict, right? They're not going to match up, and that's okay. We kind of get that. For the narcissist, that's not okay. Their needs, and you know, for your needs, first of all, are not very important, and if they contradict their needs, that's not okay at all.
Yeah.
You know, because their needs should always be the priority. So they don't understand that you have an independent identity with your own needs that sometimes won't correlate, which for a normal human being is fine. We get that, you know, that this is a separate person with a separate identity. For the narcissist, it's not. It's like you almost become one in their fantasy world. And that means you both suddenly are just them, their needs, right?
Yeah.
In their world, you become a one. There's no two, which is why it's not okay that you can suddenly have needs that are different to theirs. That will make them rageful.
Yeah.
How dare you? Because that means you show that suddenly you're not one identity anymore.
Yeah. So when you're raising a baby, you will go through these periods, won't you, where the baby will cry to be fed, and you have to go and feed the baby, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, whenever that baby needs to be fed. But when the baby gets a little bit older, what you do is you have to choose times when they will cry and you won't go, and you'll feel bad about that. But what you're trying to teach that baby is, you know, this isn't about all of your needs. You need to, you know, grow up in this world and understand that other people have other things to do, and not everything can be around you. And it hurts while you're doing it, while you're teaching that child a lesson, but it is a valuable lesson that everybody needs to learn, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if a child have a safe attachment with a parent who grew up safely, then they also learn to trust that that parent will come back. So it's fine if the parent is away for a while. And again, if we are neurologically normally wired, we've been lucky that we had that, right? That we learned that, again, my friend might not be there, but it doesn't mean he's gone forever. He's going to come back and respond to me at some time, right? At some point. But again, if you haven't learned that, then, you know, suddenly not having somebody respond to you can feel like a disaster, because suddenly your brain feel this, and this is very prominent, even more in borderline. They feel that then suddenly you're gone forever, right? You're gone, you abandon them, and that would create this excessive response. That can be very difficult and confusing for us to respond. Like, where does this rage? And it's literally like the rage of a child who think that this person, the adult, is gone and won't come back, right? And their only response is to go into rage, to try and latch on to this person and pull. But for us, it's like, whoa, and it's so draining and it creates anxiety. And of course, it doesn't work in an adult dynamic.
And this is a way to understand some of the abusive behaviors that a narcissist would partake in, because what they will do is they will require your attention 24/7, you know, in a way that a normal person wouldn't. So, you know, they'll phone you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and sort of say, hey, you know, did you remember to put the cat out? And you know, and a normal person would say, can't you wait until, you know, tomorrow to talk to me about this? But no, need your attention all of the time.
Yeah, and I think it's really the good image of a toddler. We obviously said that before. It's like a toddler. And this is also why people, when they try to reason with a narcissist, it's important to realize it's completely pointless. It's like if your toddler is having a tantrum because you said you won't buy them an ice cream, trying to explain to them your point of view at that point in time, they're not going to listen because they're a toddler. They're just in their own mind of rage and upsetness that they didn't get the ice cream. And it's pointless trying to explain anything to them. And that's a narcissist. So any logic you have will fall on dead ears because they're in their own world, and all that matters was that they didn't get their needs, and they're rageful about that. So trying to explain and think that they will understand your perspective is completely and utterly pointless.
Yeah, and you're in a place where you're even attempting to speak logically to this person because you're trying to resolve a problem
Yeah.
in your mind. But actually, the narcissist wants to create the problem, so you can't solve it,
Yeah.
because even if you solve this one, there'll be another problem, 10 minutes later.
And you're operating from an adult brain, because even trying to solve a problem is an adult brain, right? That's emotional regulated. And you, like, again, you need to understand you're operating with a toddler who's having a tantrum. And
Yeah,
as I said, all they care about is they want the damn ice cream. They
yeah,
don't care about why, they don't care about your needs, because they're a toddler. And I
yeah,
think once we can actually see them as such, it becomes easier to start grasping, right? Because as an adult, we just can't really comprehend this behavior. And also that they don't try to change, and that they can't listen to our point of view, because a regulated adult would. But you really have to understand you're dealing with a toddler, so you can't
yeah.
treat them as an adult.
Well, I actually had visual evidence of this very phenomenon, because my narcissist used to do this and, pick stuff up and throw it at the wall till it's smashed.
Yeah.
And, you look back and you think, yeah, that is exactly what you were just saying. It's the rage of a toddler.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that response. And yeah, it's not being able to regulate and being able to go into the adult brain and say, oh, it's not always about me, which an adult can do if you have developed your brain normally, right?
Yeah.
They just can't do that. They just can't do that. It has to be about them, which is also why when people ask, is there no way I can get a good relationship if they come back and they change? No, there's no way you can have a mutual healthy relationship with a toddler, because they will continue to be a toddler, and a toddler will never care about your needs. The toddler will always expect you to 100% look out for their needs.
Yeah.
And they will always get rageful when you don't. So there's no way you can ever have a healthy dynamic. And they continue to be a toddler because they stayed in a toddler brain development stage, right? And they might be 30, 40, 50. And no, this is how their brain has developed. So they will not change, and you can't have a healthy dynamic with them.
No. So imagine if you and I were having an argument. I might get to a point where I'd say, do you know what, Thomas, I can't deal with this right now. I'm going out for a walk. I'll come back and let's deal with this another time. That's a nice, healthy way of dealing with your emotions.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, things are getting all angry and het up, and you know what, right now I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And this will not work with a narcissist.
That's right.
This will make them worse.
Yes.
This will make them more dramatic, and will spur more of their toddler tantrums.
How dare you not have time to listen
How
to
dare
me right
you
now?
Yeah, this is right. This needs to be right now, and this needs to be all about me.
That's right.
This isn't about your needs. You can't go off for a walk and cool down. How dare you? That's
right.
Yeah, and that's how you will be able to spot whether you're in a relationship with somebody who might be problematic, even if, like you say, even if they're not a narcissist, borderline, whatever the whatever the terminology is. This is when you really need to stop and look at this relationship and think, yeah, this isn't going to work out for me.
And you know what? It was really interesting because I read some research. I found 2 key skills to healthy relationships. And again, it doesn't actually matter whether it's friendships or romantic, because it's still about relating, right? And the 2 key factors was self-regulation, which is kind of what we're talking about here. Are you able to stop and calm yourself down? For you, that would be saying, I need a moment before we continue this. Then you know that's how you calm yourself down, and you can engage in an adult brain, right? Conversation.
Yeah.
They can't do that. They simply can. So people that are toxic cannot regulate, which is why they go into behaving like a toddler. That's part of the child brain, which is why children do this. They haven't actually developed that part of the brain that makes them be able to calm their emotional brain down. And toxic people have the same. They simply can't. While healthy people, they can, and that's why they can have healthy dynamics. They're able to recognize, oh, I'm getting overloaded now, I'm getting really angry. I need to just stop and take a breather so I can calm down and engage in a healthy way, right? And the second part is self-awareness. So that is being able to self-reflect. And again, we can't do that if we can't regulate our emotions. And toxic people therefore struggle to self-reflect and look at, oh, what was my part in this? And again, that's part of a healthy relationship, because like you said, if we have an argument, we come back and we both self-reflected a bit. And I'm like, yeah, Brian, maybe you're right. Maybe I were a bit too aggressive. Maybe I overreacted because it really triggered me because X, Y, and Z. and then we can listen to each other, right? And we can take responsibility for our part, and we grow together. That's why it's a healthy dynamic. This ain't gonna happen with a narcissist. They can't sit and take responsibility. Neither could a borderline, because that would be too shameful for them. They couldn't sit and say, oh, maybe this was my part, maybe I shouldn't have done that, and I can see this, right? They just can't do that.
Well, while I was arguing with my narcissist, I would have times where I'd stop and say, hey, why are we doing this? This is crazy. We love each other, right? You know, why are we fighting about this? You know, me not washing your cup up properly, or whatever insignificant thing it was. And like I say, like you say, with a regular person, there's no problem with that. Most people will snap out of it and say, yeah, do you know what, this is silly, let's calm down, let's, you know, go and have a cup of tea or something and do this another time. With a narcissist, that ain't going to happen, like you say. That's not going to happen.
Which is also why they're dangerous, because this is part of what makes us be able to be safe, basically. If people can't regulate their emotions, they're going to go off on a railway and they can't stop it, and then their actions, behavior also become out of line, and they can't control. This is why people have road rage, right? Or what we call narcissistic rage. It's basically inability, because we can all get dysregulated and upset and angry, but a healthy mind is able to stop and say, whoa, it's getting out of hand now. That's the whole regulation, right? So we stop and you say, I need a break. That's healthy. You recognize, you have the self-awareness to know, whoa, I'm getting dysregulated. This is not good. I need to stop, right? That's exactly healthy behavior. But they can't do that, which is exactly why they become dangerous, because then their behavior will also get out of hand and they will be unable to stop how they behave, which is why they can suddenly do really destructive things, whether it's falsely accusing you to the police, whether it's, like you said, suddenly throwing a plate at you or become violent. You know, this can be expected of a toxic person because they lack this ability. So in general, like you said, it doesn't matter about the label. If you see a person struggle to have this ability, then it's already a big warning sign, and you should start being really careful engaging with this person.
Yep. Because as I said earlier about making lists of things that you've done wrong, any response that you will have to this railway going off, this runaway train, will become a grievance.
Yeah.
So if you stand there and say, you know what, this is getting crazy, I can't cope with this, I'm going out for a walk, that will become a grievance, because, you know, how dare you not respond to what my needs are?
Yeah.
You know, or if you fight back and say, oh, you know what, I've had enough of being with you because you were always fighting with me about this, then that's going to become a grievance as well.
Oh, yeah, it will.
You know, that's going to be why you always act angry, you know. And that person won't evaluate their role in creating your anger. They're just going to see your response and base their view of you on that response.
Yeah, that's really good. You know, actually, a thing I just wanted to mention in what you're saying here is, because somebody asked me about the what's the difference between taking space and silent treatment. And I think it's really important to get the difference, because like you just said, but when you said I need a bit of space, and you then remove yourself, that's not silent treatment, that's taking space. And here's a key difference, is that, first of all, it's not used as a way to punish me. That's number one. So what is the intent of what you're doing? Your intent for what you're saying is to calm yourself down so you can engage with me in a healthy way. You don't remove yourself to punish me or make me feel anxious. The narcissist will do it purposefully to punish you, right? Yeah. And the second difference is that in a healthy way, is communicated what's going on. So you're saying, I'm taking a little bit of space because I need, and then you come back and re-engage, right? The narcissists don't communicate normally what's going on. They just disappear on you, again, because that creates anxiety. You don't understand what's happening, right? And they will often try and get you to then chase them. They don't come and re-engage again when they, you know, have calmed down. So again, it's used as a way to create anxiety, while in a healthy dynamic, it's not, and there's communication around what's going on. So that's a key distinction, I think, between healthy space and silent treatment as a tool to try and punish you.
Definitely. And in a healthy communication, what we're doing is we're agreeing a time scale. So I'll say, I need a day or so to think about this. So you've got a time scale, you know when that's going to end. And you know that eventually we're going to talk. when that time scale ends. With a narcissist or a borderline or whatever, a toxic person, whatever you want to call it, there is no time scale.
Yeah.
It's just silence.
Yeah, and you're just left
You have
feeling.
to guess when it's going to end.
You know what? This is such a beautiful description, because I think the key difference when we go back to what we talked about in the beginning, how do we feel, is that with the toxic person, you will feel abandoned, because the fact is they're just suddenly gone. You don't know why, you don't know when they'll come back. You actually feel abandoned, which is why you feel anxious. While with a healthy dynamic, you don't feel that anxiety, because as you said, it's communicated why they're leaving. And also, you know that they will actually come back, meaning you don't get that sense of anxiety. And that's a key way to also feel yourself. Is this toxic or not, right? Because if you are left every time feeling really anxious and worried, is this person gone forever? That's really unhealthy. That's not a safe dynamic. In a safe dynamic, you know that this person might be pissed with you, but it's okay, because they're going to come back and you will sort it out together.
Yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
it's been measured that there is a specific amount of time and a specific intent to this other person's silence.
Yeah,
you know, I need to go away and think about this. I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
You know? Whereas a narcissist won't give you anything to measure that silence with.
That's right.
They might not even tell you why they're being silent.
That's right. That's right. I think it's been a wonderful chat today. I love this. I could go on, but I think people might end up needing a break from listening to us. So
yeah, no worries. Well, I'm sure we'll speak again.
Yeah, of course we will. I'm loving this. So let's speak again soon. And we'll talk more about narcissism, toxicity, and also healthy relationships, so people can understand the difference. I think it's good we're giving examples of the difference. Because
that's the goal. At the end of this all, the goal is you. It's not about understanding the narcissist. It's about becoming the best person you can be.
Yeah, and having nurturing relationships, knowing what does healthy actually look like. I know for some people that in itself is a revelation.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great speaking to you, Thomas. Like you say, let's speak again soon.
Perfect.